Player engagement is probably one of the most important things to consider when designing a game. Before we get into that, I have to come clean about something. I am a Giga nerd, which is why I was excited when, in 2021, Paradox Interactive announced Victoria 3, the sequel to Victoria 2, which, you probably could have figured that one out on your own, huh? Victoria 2 is a cult classic among grand strategy games, due in large part to all the intricate systems that allow the player to really direct their country as they see fit. And also because it's kinda old and hardly anyone plays it. Victoria 2 is a country running sim fully realized. It simulates a global economy between all the countries and even incorporates a migration system that updates in real time based on world events. The level of player control and complexity the game offers is really impressive for the time and even still today, which is why people weren't really sure that there'd ever be an actual sequel to this game. Now, don't get me wrong, I would never call Victoria 2 a perfect game. The modding community is great and helps add a lot of extra content and flavor to the game, but the core game itself still has mechanical issues that do hold it back. That's what made the announcement of Victoria 3 so exciting. This was a chance after over a decade to start anew, to craft something modern, to flesh out mechanics that weren't fully realized in the previous title. Now at this point, a lot of the original team from Victoria 2 is gone from Paradox, but I'm sure they'd still do the game right? They would do right by the players, right? Guys? Victoria 3 is a modern Paradox game, for better or for worse. While I'm sure the bugs and kinks will be worked out over time, and the game certainly has a long life ahead of it, probably, there's still some aspects that I've found very disappointing. Besides some minor personal gripes and the technical problems that come standard issue with any modern game, my major contention with Victoria 3 is with how war is handled. I would describe war as a major facet of interactions between nations, either directly involved or as an implicit threat of violence in negotiations. Now, you would assume in a country running simulator that something like war would get a decent amount of attention, much like economics and trade and buildings do in Victoria 3. This would be a mistake. Here is war in Victoria 3. In Victoria 3, essentially, war just kinda happens sometimes, and you click a button and just watch the computer do stuff. Fun. Now, when describing war in Victoria 2, fun would not really be a word I would use, but there was something it definitely did have that is lacking in Victoria 3, and it took me a while to really think about it. While war in Victoria 2 wasn't all that fun, it was at least engaging. And that is the last word I would use to describe war in Victoria 3. While Victoria 3 just completely simulates combat, and it's really more or less out of your control, in Victoria 2, things were clunky. It wasn't all that clear what exactly was happening or why you were dying, but it was a real nail biter because you did have that direct control over your units. It was under your control, at least to some degree, and you had some idea that you could win or lose at any moment. Realizing this led me to the revelation that a lack of engagement is actually a major factor contributing to negative feedback on a lot of games and even a lot of media in general, and you could really broaden this out as much as you want. One great example, think about all the debate over difficulty in video games nowadays. On both sides of the issue, it's an issue of engagement. People arguing in favor of the difficulty in games like Dark Souls and Elden Ring are arguing over engagement, that the lower difficulty level doesn't allow the player to properly engage with the game as it is designed. On the flip side, people arguing for things like easy modes or just a dumbing down of difficulty in general under the guise of accessibility are doing so because they are unable to engage with the game, because they are unable to meet the expectations the game sets forth. They are unable to engage with the game in the way they want to at such a high difficulty. But this has been covered ad nauseum by others and is kind of distracting from the main point, so let's just move on. I would say what it ultimately comes down to is a mismatch of expectations. Think of it like this. In the same way there are popcorn flicks or movies, there are popcorn video games. Video games you expect to be able to shut your mind off and just enjoy them for a while without having to think too much. So, when a game doesn't engage with players the way the player expects it to, either because it failed to be engaging to the player or because it tried to engage the player in a way that they weren't expecting to be engaged, and so we end up with a mismatch of expectations that ultimately leaves both sides frustrated and disappointed. This frustration stems from feelings of a lack of respect on the behalf of the player, and sometimes in reverse on behalf of the developer by the players. Developers becoming frustrated in that the players aren't engaging with the game in the way that they expect them to. Once again, a mismatch of expectations. Now, instead of covering one of the myriad of examples of a negative situation like this, I'd like to instead cover a positive example of a development team that seems to actually respect their player base. Now, before we move on, I'd like to remind all you fuckers to like, comment, and subscribe. Alright? Got it? Done? Hot Wheels Unleashed is a game I never really expected to buy, let alone have become one of my favorite arcade racers of all time. In fact, I didn't even know it existed until just a few weeks ago, when a friend of mine showed it to me after grabbing it on sale, thinking it'd be just a fun, nostalgic romp. I mean, yeah, come on, we all play with Hot Wheels as kids, right? But this is the kind of game you expect to just be a cash grab, just kind of phoned in by the B team to make some extra money. But oh, how wrong we were. The game begins by throwing you into a quick tutorial race that lets you learn the ropes, and then after that, well, the world is your oyster. Off the bat, you'll notice there's a variety of cars to pick from with their own stats and looks, and you'll notice that there's more to get from there and unlock. Now, you can't unlock them all with in-game money, but you also have to pay for loot. Just kidding, there's no loot box shit in here. You get to fucking do it all in-game, baby. Now, some of the cars and maps do come separately from the main game as just their own DLC, but that's just kind of old school style. I don't really mind it, honestly. This game isn't full price anyway. I was able to get all of it on sale for just 25 bucks, so I don't know, can't complain that much. But maybe I'm just impressed they didn't actually go with loot boxes for something so obvious like this. Anyway, there is also an upgrade system so you can improve stats on cars you like. Well, within limitations. You can also make custom skins for your car, and there's a whole community system behind it too, which is just great, honestly. There's a lot of great and fun options for different skins for all the cars I've gotten, and, well, I like to have something nice to look at while I'm playing a game, you know? The game offers online play with up to 12 players, and also split screen, which is a great surprise for games nowadays. The single player even offers a decent chunk of content, all contained in this Super Mario World type of setup. And what's great about it is that there's no bullshit. There's no feature-length cutscenes or escort quests or one of those puzzles where you just take one thing and then put it somewhere else to complete it. It's just races and time trials, and the game does not hold back on the difficulty for these either. Let me make it clear, this game was not designed for kids to beat. It is hard, even on medium. I had to go on easy for some of these races. I mean, I kind of suck, but still, I'm an adult. I can, have a job sometimes. But this leads to a real feeling of satisfaction when you do finally complete a tough course. The time trial courses on the Monster Truck DLC honestly felt harder than most Dark Souls bosses, and this is me racing a car on a Hot Wheels track, so, that really says something. But the game's just a fun time, honestly. And I didn't even get into the community tracks, or the fact that you can repaint your mom's basement, fill it with explosives and copies of the Unabomber's Manifesto. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you like arcade racers and you catch it on sale, definitely grab it. Now, I would say that at the end of the day, the important thing to remember is that it's not the companies that make games great or not. It's the people that work there. People make games, not companies. Thanks for watching.
We seem really immature right now. We're actually like having some genuinely good interactions.
Oh, gee. Good Lord.
Started off with just 3 of us. We were at that time making what we thought was going to turn out to be a myth-type clone with a sci-fi skin on it.
They were doing Blam, which was the code name for this other game that they were working on.
We had a huge map for a continuous RPG. Then before that, we had an RTS.
We had no idea what the game was going to be. I had no idea. You know, I was just there to do concepts.
It was pretty generic sci-fi. You had your typical military forces, tanks, jeeps, that kind of thing, and some armored guys.
We wanted a sci-fi character, a guy in a suit who can go from Earth to space. So we don't have to worry about him changing clothes, and he just needed to look like a space marine.
Oh God, what do we call him? Something like the super soldier.
And then, you know, we started to move the camera and closer to the character.
What if we put ourselves in this character? What if we became that character?
Sorry for the quick thaw, Master Chief. Things are a little hectic right now.
Those are the moments where things start to come together. It's Marcus saying like, no, we're going first person because this is more fun.
I don't think we would have captured as much of the audience had we stayed in third person.
Those are the ideas and the decisions that really change the course of a game and a company.
All you greenhorns who wanted to see Covenant up close, this is going to be your lucky day.
Suddenly we had this opportunity to tell a little piece of a story. I remember Joe coming to me, and all he said to me was, "That's an ancient, epic alien." So he just gave me those 3 words. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just try combining something that does that. Came up with the pounding drums, cellos, monks, alien voice. Showed it to the guys on a Monday morning, and then they got on a plane to go to New York and show it at Macworld the next day.